Hey guys, Charlie Murphy here. I'm playing a session of 1-2 No Limit 6 Max games on Ignition. Thank you for choosing my video. Upper right hand table, we're in the big blind facing a 2.5x open from the button. I'm going to go ahead and 3-bet very aggressively in the spot, 14-15%, including some mid-suited connectors like 8-7 suited. Upper left hand table, I'll open ace-3 suited from middle position using a 21% range. Upper left-hand table, get 3 in position. I'll just go ahead and fold the ace-3 suited. I get 4-bet on the upper right-hand table in a loose formation. I'm going to be continuing against the 4-bet pretty widely. Jamming kings and queens, ace-king, and probably ace-5 suited is something of a pre-flop bluff in a spot this loose. I'll also call with my aces to trap, pocket pairs, jacks through about 7s, and suited broadways. Suited connectors I can go ahead and fold versus the 4-bet. Upper left-hand table, get in, open from the button, small blind 3-bet. I'll be playing my big blind cold 4-bet or fold, and 6-4 suited very clearly in the fold range. Or right-hand table, I'll isolate that limper pretty aggressively when I'm on the button. Probably something like a cutoff raise first in range. 10-9 off, a little too loose to be doing that, though, in my opinion. Upper right-hand table, I'll open king-queen from the cutoff using a 28% range. For right-hand table, I'll open Jack-9 suited under the gun using an 18% range. For left-hand table, get a 2.5x open under the gun. I'm going to go ahead and 3-bet out of the small blind with pocket queens. 3-betting fairly tight here in this tighter formation, about 7%, but pocket queen is still, of course, very clearly good enough to 3-bet. Upper right-hand table got called in position by 2 players. At least one is probably a rec play and a half stack. I'm going to go ahead and check range. Flop checks around on that ace-8-5 rainbow board. Turn is a deuce, putting a backdoor flush draw. Then go ahead and start stabbing at this pot. Upper left-hand table, going to go ahead and open ace-5 on the button using a 44% range. Upper left-hand table, opening jack-9 blind on blind using a 45% range. We'll fold against the 3-bet in the blind battle, but I will range bet on the lower left-hand table on the jack-8-3 rainbow board. Upper right-hand table, my turn small lead got called in position, then the button goes ahead and raises up, and I've got no equity, no draw. I'll just go ahead and fold. Was just trying to pick up that pot cheap when nobody showed any desire for it on the flop. With the people putting money on the turn and raising, I'll just get out of the way without something to at least back me up. Lower left-hand table, we'll open queen 10 from the cutoff using a 28% range. Get 3-bet in position with the queen 10. I'll just go ahead and fold. Lower right-hand table, recreational player tries to limp blind on blind. I'm going to go ahead and pop him up with ace-5. I'm going to raise up very aggressively here using something like my button open range, about 44%. He limp calls. It gives me a 10-5-4 rainbow board. I've got second pair top kicker. He leads it in me for half pot. I'll just go ahead and call with my continue range there, including ace-5. He checks the turn. I would be barreling here on this king that completes the rainbow if I had, turned some kind of equity or I had a real strong hand. If I've got a hand like 6-7, I'll be blasting away. If I turned an open-ender after floating the flop with a hand like Queen-Jack, I'd blast away. A hand like a pair of fives, ace-kicker, I guess the only real reason to bet that is equity denial. Fold out some overcards that have equity, but I just don't think that's a good enough reason to bet when I've got some more natural, obvious bluffs that are going to play better in larger pots, whereas a hand like the ace-5 is going to do a bit better when the pot stays smaller. He blasts into me for a large size here. He blasts into me for pot. Think about that for a minute. He goes bet, check, bet. That's pretty bluffy from Fish, which means I think I can consider calling this down. I doubt he's doing that with a 10, so he's really repping some kind of monster hand or at least peeling the king. I'm going to hero call this, especially against a recreational player. Yeah, against 8-6. Upper left-hand table, my ace-queen gets 3, but I would use this a 4-bet a lot, but not against a short-stack recreational player. I'm just going to go ahead and fold that and not get involved. No reason to get myself pot stuck against a $80-100 player. No reason to play ace-queen for stacks unless I see this guy to be active. Upper left-hand table, get a 2.5x open under the gun. I'm in the big blind with 10-6 suited. That's a little bit on the loose side to defend. Now we'll go ahead and fold. We get a 3x 3-bet of our isolation raiser on the lower left-hand table. I'm trying to decide how I want to play back at this. I can have 4 bets. I think in this particular spot, I just want to be 4-betting kings, aces, ace-king suited, and ace-queen is a bluff. And I think I'll take the flop with a hand like ace-king offsuit and queens. Not that I'm that worried about the hand being pre-flop, but I just like having some ace-king in the call range and in the 4-bet range. Especially against these ISO raises that are, or the ISO re-raises against an ISO, which are probably a bit tighter than some other ranges would be. I'm going to go ahead and float the small flop bet on 6-6 deuce rainbow. I've still got ace-king high, really only behind pocket pairs that were beating me all along. Ace or a king is probably still pretty live and a good card for me. He checks the turn. I'll go ahead and check back. I think I'd be betting with, if I somehow hit 9s full or had some kind of 6x type hand. Although I guess I could even check those back and protect my check range, as I'm a bit more. He's going to have more aces and kings than I'll have. I won't have the real strong hands on this board because I'm going to have 4-bet those pre-flop. Upper left-hand table, going to go ahead and raise the button with Jack 10 using a 44% range. Lower right-hand table, going to open pocket 8s in middle position using a 21% range. Low board stays low. I've got ace-king high. I'm going to be content to show this down and see if my ace-king is good. I'm against the other ace-king. I get 3-bet in position with the 8s. Decent size up, about 3.5x. The 8s are probably a fold in that spot against the pool. It's close. With the size up, it's on the close side, but I think it's probably a bit better to fold that. Lower left-hand table, I'll open ace-king under the gun using an 18% range. Lower right-hand table, get a button limp from a wreck. The flop checks through on ace, queen, 8, rainbow. Turn is the 10 of clubs, putting the backdoor flush draw out there. Actually got a double gut shot here to either the 7 or the jack, though the jack is not all that great a card. The 7 is a good card, however. They're giving me the low straight. I'm going to go ahead and overbet this for value here. The right-hand table, going to open ace-8 blind on blind using a 45% range. I'm going to check range to the big blind after he calls on the king-4-3 two-tone board. He goes ahead and bets about 75–80% of pot. I'm just going to go ahead and check fold ace-high without backdoors against that large size. Lower left-hand table, get a middle position open, a cutoff 3-bet. I'm going to play cold 4-bet or fold out of my big blind. Probably cold 4-betting to stack off with queens are better. Probably about a 50-50 ratio of value bets to bluffs, which means I don't need to be cold 4-betting the hand as weak as some of these wheel aces like ace-4. Just go ahead and fold it. Lower left-hand table, recreational player limps, middle position. I will isolate from the button using something like my cutoff open range, about 28%, including queen 7 suited, right around the bottom of an ISO range here. You could maybe even arguably pitch this because he's shorter and you can be a bit tighter with lower implied odds. Get a queen jack 8 two-tone board. I've got top pair. I'm going to go ahead and put in a small range bet and just plan to get the money in on most turns. He raises me. I've got top pair. I'm just going to go with this against a short stack. I mean, it's not the ideal situation to be in here with the weak top pair with no redraws, but I think it's going to be better than doing anything else. So I'll raise him back and get my top pair in. He calls off with ace-5 suited for a flush draw and an overcard, so we're about a flip there. I'm a little bit ahead of the flip range, or a little bit ahead of him, a little bit ahead of a flip there against this particular hand. And I end up holding on the, in the spot where he has a lot of equity. Lower left-hand table, open kings from the cutoff using a 28% range. Upper left-hand table, open ace-9 from the cutoff using ace-9, once again using a 28% range. Lower left-hand table, my king-jack open gets 3-bet in position. Just go ahead and fold that. Lower left-hand table, the big blind comes along. We get a 10-7-3 rainbow board. I'll go ahead and put in a small range bet. Get called. Turn is a 9. Let me see here. He could have a lot of strong hands that I really can't have the Jack-8 suited here. Actually, no, on the cutoff I do have Jack-8 suited. I actually can have a lot of strong hands here to overbet or check. I think overbet or check is going to be fine. I've also got all the sets where he should at least be somewhat discounted from having not re-raised either pre-flop or on the flop. I think I can overbet or check. So my overbet range is going to be strong 2-pair sets and straight type hands, and then top pairs with good removal, probably a hand like 10 jack. I think I'm going to check back my or a pocket jacks is a good overbet as well because I block the straight and draw to the straight. I think I can check back pocket kings here, under rep them to induce bluffs or under rep for my value bet on the river. He goes ahead and bets half pot quickly. I think I can actually try to get some thin value here. I'm going to go ahead and put in a small value raise in this spot, try to get called by some kind of 10x type hand. Upper right-hand table, open Jack-9 on the button using a 44% range. Let's see. Upper left-hand table, the flop he called the small range bet. Turn is a pretty innocuous deuce, and the river is a board pairing card. He leads into me from the big blind, especially as a recreational player. I'm going to really be very alert to that board pairing river. No draws completed. I don't really block too many draws except the nut flush draw. I am going to hero call him with ace high here. And he managed to make a full house with 5 running off the runner deuces to hit 2 pair and trips, but I'm okay with the play. Lower right-hand table, my Jack-10 gets led into by a recreational player, big blind on the 9-8-5 two-tone board. Going to go ahead and just continue for a call there with my open-ender and 2 overcards. Lower left-hand table, open king-jack blind on blind using a 45% range. I'll check range to him on the flop on the 10-4-3 rainbow board. Lower right-hand table, the turn is a board pairing card in 8. Going to go ahead and continue calling against the half-pot bet with the open-ender and 2 overcards. Lower left-hand table, the 10-high board checks through. The turn is a board pairing card. The 4 completing the rainbow. I'll start jabbing at it small with my overcards. And then the lower left-hand table, he triple leads into me. He leads a very small size, about 40%. I think I can actually be bluff raising against recreational players in this line and for that size. So I'm going to go ahead and put in the raise, go about pot size raise here. Really scare him a lot without having trips or, even the 9 should be in bad shape. He's probably likely he's got an ace in that line, and we take it down. Upper left-hand table, open ace-10 under the gun. Got called by a short stack recreational player in the cutoff. I'll check range 2 home in the ace-king-6 two-tone board. Turn is a board carrying card, the 6. Counterfeits my kicker, but I'm going to go ahead and jab at that turn small with my top pair. River is a flush closing card, the 3 of diamonds. I'm trying to decide if there's more merit in checking to induce a bluff or betting to try to get value from a king. I think I'm probably better off checking and evaluating here with the board pairing and the flush closing type stuff going on, where I lose to flushes and 6s. King X might be a bit weak here. Although he really doesn't bluff that much. I'm going to go ahead and actually try to get value. I talked myself into it the more I thought about it. Try to get value from a King X type hand. Lower right-hand table, open in 10s under the gun using an 18% range. Called by a half stack on the button, suspected recreational player playing 50 blinds deep. And I get raised by a player in the big blind, suspected recreational player. He's only got 40 blinds. He goes ahead and pops me up. Given that we're so short, I'm really not burned all that badly if my 10s run into an overpair. I think I can just go ahead and ship this Ellen over the top with all that money out there and force him to flip with me or fold if he's doing that with bullshit. I'm going to go ahead and just reship my 10s over the top. Snaps me off with jacks. Doesn't go the way I would have liked, but I just don't think that calling and taking a flop or folding to that against a player that's not that deep is the move either. Tight formation, he's probably not all that loose out of the big blind, but you just don't know with these guys. They click buttons a lot. I'm fine with the play. Lower right-hand table, got a 2.5x open under the gun. A recreational player sitting 20 blinds deep calls in position from middle position. 7-4 suited is kind of on the cusp of defense against the under the gun open anyway, and since I'm shorter stacked and we have to be tighter with the caller in there as well, I think I'm just going to go ahead and make that be a fold. Lower left-hand table, recreational player on 20 blinds, limps. I'll go ahead and complete the small blind with 9-6 suited. Check range on the flop. The 8-8-4 rainbow flop. There's some backdoor cards I can hit. I won't be paying anything against a bet to see them, but if it checks through, I can pick up some equity. Get a 75% bet from the big blind. I'll just go ahead and fold. Upper left-hand table, open king-9 from the button using a 44% range. Against the 3-bet from the small blind, even though he's aggressive, I'm just going to go ahead and quickly fold. Lower right-hand table, rather, going to open king-10 suited from the button using a 44% range. Interesting dynamic on the upper left-hand table in that the in-position player has been very aggressive with this 3-bets, but the 2 players immediately after him are both shorter stacked recreational players I want to be involved with. Lower right-hand table, the short stacked rec comes along, get a 9-4-3 two-tone board. I'll go ahead and range bet small. Comes along for a call. Turn is the jack of clubs, closing the flush. It does give me a gut shot to the straight. I don't see any reason to go ahead and blast off here with king 10, no club. He's got about 150, 170% of pot left in his stack. I'm going to go ahead and check this back, try to peel a queen or a king. It's the jack. I'll probably just bluff. The river is that jack right there that pairs the board. He goes ahead and he bets half pot. I'm not going to try to bluff raise a short stack here. It's somewhat close with that smaller river size. I just don't know that he actually folds his pairs very much, so I'm just going to go ahead and fold. Probably more inclined to hero call against that if I've got something like an ace high or a pair. I think king high I just go ahead and put in the fold range. Lower right-hand table, open 6s from the cutoff using a 28% range. Same short stack recreational player comes along for a call. Again, this time out of his small blind, I get a queen 9 deuce rainbow board. I'll go ahead and put in a small range bet and be mostly checking back the turn. I suppose I'll check back essentially any turn unless I hit a 6, in which case it's going to be a decision between getting the money in over 2 streets or 1. Recreational player limps. Small blind pops him up from 2 to 4. I normally don't really call a lot sandwiched between 2 players, but I'm not expecting too many limp re-raises. And the price is so good, I am just going to take a flop with my ace 9 here. Upper left-hand table, a recreational player who's now just doubled up on some kind of draw race a hand or two ago. He limps the cutoff. It folds to me. I will check in for my big blind with 10-8 suited, check range on the flop. Get led into on the by the player who min-raised pre-flop out of the small blind. I've got second pair top kicker, but against that size up when I'm getting led into with multiple guys, I'm just going to go ahead and fold. In the limp pot upper left-hand table, I do have a gut shot. He blasts for pot. I'll call it one time because he's a wreck, and that 9 is going to be the nuts if I hit it, at least on the immediate card. So I'll go ahead and peel once, looking to make my hand. He checks back. I'm going to go ahead and turn my 10 high into a bluff on the river, and that king of diamonds that doesn't improve me at all. And I take it down. Floating fish out of position. Upper left-hand table, got a recreational player sitting about 20 blinds deep, limps under the gun. I'm going to isolate him from the small blind with the tight aggressive range, about 12%, including my queen-jack suited, using a larger size ISOing out of position. He comes along for the call. I get a queen 7-5 two-tone board. I've got top pair with just more than a pot bet behind me. I'm going to go ahead and range bet him small and plan to get this in on the turn. Comes along for the call. Turn is the 8. It closes the straight, puts a backdoor flush draw out there. None of that concerns me all that badly for the stack size we're at against a recreational player. Going to go ahead and put the rest in, about 60% of pot. He calls me with 8-10, so he turned a pair on the turn. Rivers is 2-pair to actually win the pot. Well played, I suppose. No, I'm certainly fine with the way that one played out. Everything except losing the pot on the river, but that's not the kind of thing I can control. Lower right-hand table, open threes from the cutoff using a 28% range. Big blind comes along, checks to me on the ace-9-7 two-tone board. I'll go ahead and range bet him small, mostly checking back turns unless I hit a 3. Get a 3x open from a loose passive player playing about 45 blinds deep on the upper left-hand table. Folds to my big blind because he's been so loose passive and now he's opening 3x from an earlier spot. I am going to be pretty careful, but I think a hand like King-Queen is still good enough to call. Probably call my offsuit Ace-Queen, King-Queen, Ace-Jack, and that's about it as far as offsuit Broadways go in this spot. But I will call the King-Queen and check range to him on the flop. Get a 4-4-3 rainbow flop. I'll mostly be check folding unless he bets extremely small. Against half pot, I can just go ahead and fold the King-Queen. Upper left-hand table, I'll open nines in the cutoff using a 28% range. Get 3-bet in position by a player who's been very active with the 3-betting. I'm going to treat him as if he's just in full GTO range here. I'd be 4-betting 10s plus ace-king to get him in with a couple corresponding bluffs. Here against the 3-bet, I'm just going to call with most of my suited broadways, 9s through 6s, and a few small suited connectors. Check range on the flop. Really bad flop for my calling range is he's got all the aces, kings, ace-king. I don't have any of it in this particular line. I don't have any deuces for sets. I think I was just going to be continuing my entire continue range with the call here, as I just don't have any strong hands that want to check raise. I have some ace-x type hands, maybe even some king-queen, king-jack. I can float with queen-jack either with or without a flush or backdoor flush draw. And I do have some small flush draws with the suited connectors. I think these mid pairs, especially without a club, are just going to be folds. Get a 2.5x open from the button, who's been on the tight passive side so far on the lower right-hand table. Small blind comes along for a call, so it's a squeeze situation. Even if this player was sufficiently aggressive for a button opener, I would not be 3-betting with a hand like 5-4 suited. Given that he's been even on the tight side, I'm just going to react accordingly and be a bit tighter myself. That said, 5-4 suited still plays very nicely for a call, even multi-way, so I'm going to go ahead and call that and check range on the flop. Get led into by the small blind player. I've got bottom pair, backdoor flush draw, but when I'm getting led into here, a sandwich between two players, really my equity is not all that great, even though I do have a backdoor flush draw. I think I'm just going to go ahead and fold. Upper right-hand table, I'll open ace-queen under the gun using an 18% range. Get 3-bet in position. 3-bet and 3-bet pretty quickly. However, I'm not going to read too much into that. He uses a reasonably standard size from 5 to 17. I'm going to stack off here for a 4-bet with queens plus ace-king and use ace-queen offsuit as my bluffing combo, as it's got such good removal to his aces, queens, ace-king. And it'll play decently if I happen to get called, as I can flop decent top pair or some kind of Broadway draw and start shoveling money in. He quickly folds against the 4-bet, though. Upper right-hand table, got a 2.5x open from middle position. Jack 10 would be a call. One of the worst offsuit Broadway cards I would call. And a heads-up pot. With the small blind player coming along, he's going to rob me of my equity in that pot, and it'd be a good bit tighter. I can actually go ahead and start folding some of my more marginal hands that are normally defenses in a heads-up situation. I will go ahead and fold the Jack 10. I don't know that either of these players are recreational players. In fact, I suspect they're not. The guy to my immediate right in the small blind has been very tight passive so far, 14-8 over 50 hands. And this other player seems to be a reg, at least buying in full stacked and raising and not calling pre-flop. Lower left-hand table, get a blind limp or limper, and it limps a limper in the cutoff, and it folds to me in the big blind. I check range on the flop. He checks back. 9-5-3 rainbow. Turn is a 7, giving me a pair. I go ahead and probe it small, and he instantly folds. Upper left-hand table, a suspected recreational player open limps the cutoff. I complete the small blind with ace-7. I will check range on the flop after the big blind checks, get an ace-king-6 rainbow board. Flop checks around, turn is a 7, give me aces up. I'm going to go ahead and probe at that turn small with my 2 pair. Lower right-hand table, get a min raise from the button. Small blind comes along for a call. I've got pocket 7s. Pocket 7s are right around the bottom of my squeeze range. I'm going to go ahead and put in the squeeze here. Interesting in that my lead gets raised from 2 to 6, and then the player behind pops him up from 6 to 12. I'm really not that worried about hands being super strong here, like aces or kings, ace-king. I'm going to go ahead and actually call despite this funky action. And evaluate on the river. Everyone comes along for a call. River is the 6, but it's a flush closing card. I think I'm better served to check and see if I can get this showdown a bit cheaper. Lower left-hand table, 2.5x open from the button. I'll defend my big blind with Jack 10. Check range on the flop. He goes and he overbets. I'm just not willing to give him credit for too many bluffs there. I'm just not sure he's overvaluing hands on that particular card either. I think my ace-7 is correct to be folded. Upper right-hand table, I'll open ace-king from the cutoff. Lower left-hand table, get an 8-7-5 two-tone board. I've got a gut shot and 2 overcards. He bets half pot. I'm going to go ahead and check call and check on the turn. Turn is a 4 flush closing card, putting 4 to the straight and 3 to the flush out there. He again barrels for half pot with no diamond in my hand. I think I can just go ahead and fold. Upper right-hand table, the small blind 4x 3 bets my cutoff open here. I've got ace-king. I'll be continuing. The only question is, do I want to 4-bet this or do I want to call? In this formation against that size, I think it's probably more inclined to be a call. But it is pretty close. You know, at optimal, it's probably a 4-bet. The pool's a little too passive, so I could go ahead and call it instead. But it's close. You could 4-bet there for sure, and it wouldn't be any kind of mistake. That's for damn sure. Lower left-hand table, min raise from the cutoff. A fishy player calls on the button. I'm in the small blind with 9-6 suited. Don't really call here very much, but against the min raise with a fish out there, I'm going to go ahead and try to sneak in. Big blind folds, so it works. I check range on the flop, 10-5-3 two-tone. We'll just check fold against most bet sizes. Upper right-hand table, get a 7-6-4 two-tone board. He leads into me for about a third pot here after I defended the pre-flop 3, but I do have the ace of diamonds for the backdoor flush draw, so I'm going to go ahead and defend that for sure. Against the 2/3 bet and then the call, I'm going to fold my 9-6. Lower left-hand table, I am going to open my queen 7 suited from the button. Now, upper left-hand table, I could either bet this or check this back. I think I want to be interesting. I think given that I really don't have that much showdown value, I think I just want to go ahead and stab for half pot and plan to turn this into a bluff on the river. Lower right-hand table, get a limp from the cutoff. I'll isolate from the button with Jack-8 suited using something like my cutoff open range, about 28%. He limp shoves on me, and I'll fold my Jack-high. Really not sure if I should be betting or checking the naked ace of diamonds there in that spot. Is getting check raised all in really, really sucks. It forces me off my equity. And that's really the only unpaired or unsuited combos, really the only offsuit combos I call a pre-flop are going to be ace king in that spot. I'm not sure what else I have to turn into a bluff with a single diamond. I guess some pocket pairs with a single diamond maybe. Lower right-hand table, open king-8 suited from middle position using a 21% range. Small blind calls and checks to me. I'll range bet him small on the king-7 deuce two-tone board. I do have the king-high flush draw to go with my marginal top pair. Turn is an offsuit 5. I think I want to be playing overbet or check here. Be overbetting my sets of 7s, 5s, and deuces. Probably trapping with sets of kings. I have all the sets here. I've also got hands like ace-king, king-queen. Two pairs really shouldn't be too relevant in this particular formation, especially small blind that shouldn't have hands like 7-5 suited or king-7 suited in his pre-flop calling range. I think overbet or check is fine. I think some marginal king, top pair of kings with flush draws are the good flush draws to check back. That or some 5x flush draws like ace-5. I'll check this particular combo back. River's a great card for me. The 6 of hearts makes me the second nut flush. I think I want to go ahead and bet this. I'm just trying to decide if I want to overbet or bet small. I think I'll use the smaller bet here. Try to get called. Could overbet though as well. Probably be more inclined to overbet with the nut flush. Interesting open to $28 and change from the cutoff on the lower right-hand table. Wonder if that was a misclick or just he's a violent spaz. Hard to tell. Lower left-hand table, open in Jack-6 suited from the button using the 44% range. Get called by a recreational player in the small blind to get a 6 high board, 6-4-3 two-tone. I'll go ahead and range bet him small. Probably has a lot of random overcards here. I can either charge or deny equity. Comes along for the call. Turn is the 7, putting 4 to the straight, and it's a flush closer as well, 3 to the flush. I don't want to be betting a hand like second pair at this point, especially with no spades. So I'll go ahead and check that back and just try to evaluate the river. River is the offsuit king. He checks. I'm content to take my showdown value at this point. I'm against ace queen high. My hand is good. That hand should arguably be a bluff at that point on that kind of run out. Although I think I might still be able to find a call against a fish, depending on what size he uses. Lower left-hand table, I open ace-jack from the cutoff using a 28% range, get called in position by the rec and by both blinds. I get a pretty good flop for my hand, though. Jack-10, deuce, two-tone. I'm going to go ahead and check range sandwich between all these players. Looking to check raise the fish if he bets. He does not. Turn is a 6, putting a second flush draw up there. Small blind checks after tanking for a while. Big blind leads into me for half pot. He's got reggy stats, but he's playing on the shorter side. I'm going to go ahead and just continue for a call with my top pair, top kicker, and look to evaluate based on other actions and river cards. The recreational player calls in position as well. River is an offsuit king, not an ideal card for me as various straight draws got there for either straights or top pairs. The big blind goes ahead and checks. I do think I'm going to try to get some value on the thinner side here. Hope he's got a weaker jack at 10x, especially with the fish in position. So I'm going to go ahead and bet this out. I like that better than checking to induce. I can be value cutting myself against various king x. I could get raised by straights that got there. I just think this is going to be a little bit better than trying to check down and figure out if I'm bluff catching. The fish goes ahead and jams all in, and I am just going to get very far out of the way there. Upper right-hand table, open ace-deuce suited from the button using a 44% range. Called by the big blind and a king 5-3 two-tone board. I have a backdoor flush draw to go with my gut shot and my overcard. Checks, so I'll go ahead and range bet small. He calls me. Turn is an offsuit 9. I think this is probably a good combo to keep barreling in that I've got an overcard, I've got the gut shot. I'm not that worried about him having any of the sets. I guess pocket nines is the most reasonable one. That could be conceivably not, called to some extent pre-flop and then not check raised on the flop. Fives and threes should be check raised pretty heavily. I'm going to go ahead and overbet my ace deuce here. And I take that one down. Lower left-hand table, a player on a half-stack open post the cutoff and checks. The small blind completes. Small blind is also playing short. I'll go ahead and check my big blind with 10-8 suited. Check range on this flop on the King Jack 5 two-tone board. These are probably both recreational players. Turn is an offsuit ace completing the rainbow. I do, however, have a gut shot now with my 10. I get led into for 4 and do just shy of 6, and I'll go ahead and fold. Upper right-hand table, under the gun player on 30 blinds limps. I'll isolate from middle position with something like my under the gun range, about 18%, including pocket sevens. Upper left-hand table will open the middle position with ace-3 suited using a 21% range. Upper left-hand table, a recreational player calls in the small blind, got a Jack 9-5 rainbow board. I do have a backdoor flush draw with my ace-3. He leads into me, though, for looks like about 75% of pot, and I'll just go ahead and fold against a lead for that size with only some backdoor equity and an overcard. 2.5x open from the cutoff against a likely reg-type player. Folds to my big blind. I will defend the big blind with my offsuit broadways like ace-10, and I'll check range on the flop. The king-queen-3 rainbow board, so I do have a gut shot to the nuts. Lower left-hand table will open ace-queen from the button using a 44% range. He goes and he bets about 1/3. I do have that gut shot to the nuts. I'm going to go ahead and put in a check raise here in this little bit later position. That small size. I thought it was the cutoff. Now I'm not quite sure. These players sitting in. Either way, my check raise gets through. Lower left-hand table, the big blind calls and checks to me. I'll go ahead and range bet him small on the Jack-7-6 rainbow board. Do have 2 overcards, some backdoor draws, backdoor straight draw. Let's see. Lower or upper right-hand table going to open blind on blind with 6-4 suited. Lower left-hand table is a board pairing card, the 6. I can have various 6x type hands. As well as 7s full, Jacks full. I think I'd be trapping with quad 6s and Jacks full. I could be betting my 6x to good 6x and the good 7s full, or and the 7s full as well. I do have 2 live overcards here. I think I want to go ahead and put some pressure on his hand. Going to go ahead and overbet this one as well with my 2 overcards. Could also be doing this with hands like 8-9, 8-9, 5-8 suited. Quickly folds against the turn barrel. Lower right-hand table, I'll open Queen-Jack from middle position using a 21% range. Regular player, at least so we think, but he is calling from the cutoff. He's probably pocket pair heavy to be looking for a set. Recreational player calls in the small blind, as does the big blind. I'll be checking range here, sandwiched between all these players. Not a great board for me. King 8-5 monotone, all diamonds, of which I have none. Checks through. The small blind player leads for half pot on the offsuit 3. Just going to go ahead and fold with no real draw or equity to speak of here. He had a top pair. Upper left-hand table, recreational player limps under the gun. I'm going to pop him up from the button with aces using something like my cutoff range, about 28%. Recreational player in the small blind quickly calls the ISO raise. Big blind comes along as well, as does the limper. We get a king-queen 3 two-tone board. I have an overpair with aces, and I do have the relevant ace of spades for a backdoor flush draw. The limp calling player leads into me for pot. He could be overvaluing worse king X type hands, thinking he's doing this for value, in addition to having bluffs. The size up doesn't indicate bluffiness to me, but he can just be overvaluing a king, so I'm not too worried about this quite yet. I'm going to continue for a call with my aces. Small blind player comes along as well for the pot size bet. Turn is an offsuit 4, a nice clean card for me, so my hand is still in pretty decent shape. Now that small blind player goes ahead and leads for about 75% all in, 97 all in to about 134. Upper right-hand table, I'm opening ace-queen under the gun using an 18% range. The limp calling player folds out, however, is just down to me. I'm going to go ahead and call off with my aces. I'm against a set of queens. Somehow he does not 3-bet that pre-flop. Well played, sir, I suppose. Hilarious existence. Not folding aces to that bullshit, though, nor should you be considering it. Upper right-hand table, the recreational player open limps the cutoff, folds to my big blind. I get to try it all over again with the aces. Going to go ahead and isolate him up using something like a 12% range or so, nines or better, suited broadways, ace 10, king jack type hands. Of course, ace is a part of that. I get a king, queen, 4 two-tone board. Seems awfully reminiscent of something we just saw. I'll go ahead and range bet him small. That one get folds. And on that king-queen hand where I lost the hand with aces over here a moment ago, I'm really not worried about sets on that board. As kings or queens should be 3-bet pretty heavily pre-flop. So there's only one set on the flop, and it wasn't raised with action out there, so I can discount it further. Upper right-hand table, blind on blind, we open the ace-jack. The flop I check, and he checks back on the king-6-5 rainbow board. Turn is a queen, putting a backdoor flush draw up there. I'm going to go ahead and probe into this turn small with my gut shot and overcard, and he folds out. A loose passive recreational player opens under the gun for 3x. A little concerned that he's actually raising after having not raised at all before, only 4 times and 61 opportunities thus far. However, I have pocket queens. I'm not going to start psyching myself out. This is going to still be a 3-bet. We do have this cutoff player calling, making it a squeeze scenario, so I am going to size up. Experimented with not doing so, and I just like the size up better. I seem to do a lot better with it, so that's what I'm going to use here. Normally would be squeezing something like 8%. Could maybe be a bit tighter just because this guy's perceived to be tight. And he goes and just instantly jams, and we're also a bit deeper. I've still got $258 behind. I've still got about 125, 130 blinds. I think this actually should be a fold. If I've got kings or aces, it's not going to happen, but I just could see him doing this with a hand like kings or aces himself. And the range shouldn't be so weak where I'm going to see a ton of jacks, ace, queen, pocket tens type stuff. I think queens is supposed to be a fold against that. Lower right-hand table, I open queen jack suited from the cutoff using a 28% range. I get 3-bet just over 4x by the small blind. I'm going to go ahead and defend with my pocket pairs, suited broadways, ace, king, a few wheel aces, a few suited connectors against that. Queen jack suited, very easy hand to call with. Flop ace, queen, 4 rainbow, so I've got second pair. No backdoor flush draw. He bets about a third of pot into me. Going to go ahead and call that with my second pair. Turn is the king. I wonder if this is a hand that should be turned into a bluff now, repping Jack 10 at this point. He goes ahead and continues betting into me here. I can have... I'm going to cut off against the reg. I don't really have pocket queens, that's 4, but I mean I can have ace king, I can have ace queen, I can have pocket 4s, I can have jack 10 suited, and I can have hands like queen x with backdoor flush draws. I can also have ace 4 for 2 pair, as well as hands like ace jack, ace 10. I think I'll probably just go ahead and fold this to the second barrel. The real interesting situation would be if he checked, do I start trying to turn that hand into a bluff, as I just don't have too much other jack x or 10x that blocks the nuts straight at that point. I think queen jack probably doesn't have a ton of showdown value. Well, I guess, it does against stuff like pocket 9s, pocket 10s, or just some unpaired suited connectors if he's 3-betting those. I don't know. Not clear to me what I should have done had I faced a turn check. Upper left-hand table, open jack 8 suited on the button, using a 44% range. A couple of recreational players in the blinds. I could probably expand my range there as well. They both come along and call, and they get a 10-7-3 rainbow board. I've got a gut shot, an overcard, and a backdoor flush draw. This seems like a pretty decent combo to actually put in my continuation bet range. Won't be range betting here in multi-way. There won't be range checking either with position. So I'll go ahead and bet some draws as well as some strong hands. Lower right-hand table, get a 2.5x open from the middle position player. I've got pocket tens. Pocket tens against the middle position open, I can go ahead and 3-bet. Probably 3-betting tens are better against that small open size. Let's see here. Turn is the queen. I don't have a flush draw or block the flush draw. I think I'll go ahead and check this back. I don't want to start barreling too many weakish draws on the turn against fish. I can try to either bluff him on the river though, or if I hit, try to get some value. And he checks back the turn, or he checks the turn, checks through, and he checks the river to me again. I'm just going to go ahead and put in a bluff, try to pick up this pot. Could maybe even also overbet it. I think a 2/3 size is going to be just fine. Fold out draws, maybe some 7x. 10x probably isn't going anywhere, but and trip threes, of course, is not. But not just going to give up with my jack high when these guys can have so many things they find a way to fold there. So many weak hands that have to fold also. Upper right-hand table, I'll open threes in the cutoff using a 28% range. Going to shuffle this. Well, actually, no. The player I've got direct position on looks to be a recreational player. So I was about to get out of that table as the recs are gone, but there's a new one there in place to fill in behind. Upper left-hand table, going to open ace-queen from what's effectively middle position using a 21% range. Recreational player calls on the button, playing on just over a half stack. We go heads up. I'll check range to him on the flop. We get a queen, jack, 5, two-tone board. Check range to him, was hoping to check raise, didn't get the chance. Turn is a lousy card, pairs the jack. Now I no longer have top pair, top kicker, and well, I do, but the trips are possible as well. I do probe at it small, and he quickly folds. Get a 2.25x 2.25 open on the upper right-hand table. The small blind fishy player comes along. I will defend my big blind with queen deuce suited. Would like to tighten up a bit more so because of the small blind call, but I just have a chance to flop a nice big flush against that guy and perhaps make some money from the imposition fish. I'm doing that more so than to go after this the fish I'm in position with, more so than the imposition opening player. Monotone flop, but the wrong suit. King 8, 3 of spades, where I was looking for the diamonds. I check range, and I'll just be folding against a bet here. Lower left-hand table, recreational player limps, folds to my big blind. I check in with queen 5 and check range on the flop. Going to go ahead and 3-bet the ISO raise from my button with ace-queen on the upper left-hand table. Jacks are better in if he jams on me there. Lower left-hand table, I jab the turn small with my second pair. The river is a king, putting an overcard out there in addition to the ace that was already there, and it's a flush closer. I think this is just going to be better served to just check and try to get a free showdown. Not going to get bluffed off too much. Never going to fold out an ace, a flush, a king, a straight. Probably don't get nearly enough value from a 7 to justify betting into all those other hands. So just go ahead and fold against the pot size bet. Lower right-hand table, I open 8-7 suited from the cutoff, got called in position and by the big blind recreational player. I'll check range sandwiched between these two guys on the queen 7-5 rainbow board. Turn is a deuce of clubs, putting a backdoor flush draw out there. The rec leads into me for half pot. I do still have second pair with that low turn. I'm going to go ahead and call my second pair for the half pot bet. Got to the river with the imposition player folding out. Great river for me, putting a 2-pair out there, giving me an 8 to go with 8s and 7s. He leads for half pot. I'm going to go ahead and raise this for value. I'm going to use a small size here, just try to get called by some kind of queen. A little more than half pot against his small lead. Lower left-hand table, a rec limps, folds to my small blind. I complete with king 10. The big blind checks in. I check range to 2 players on the 10-9-3 rainbow board. The big blind blasts for pot. I will check call if my top pair second kicker and continue checking on the turn. He had pocket 9s, so I did river a 2-pair to outdraw him. Lower left-hand table, he blasts again for pot, 16 into 16 on that deuce that completes the rainbow, 10-9-3 deuce. I've still got top pair second kicker. You can have all kinds of overcards, draws, worse 10s. Even though the size up I don't love, I'm not going anywhere quite yet. River is interesting card, gives me kings and 10s, top 2 pair. I check. He checks back, and he had ace-10, so he actually played it perfectly, then got away with no money when he was behind. I think my play is pretty reasonable there, though, with a good, strong top pair. Lower or upper right-hand table, get a 4x open from a player playing 30, or a min raise, a $4 open from a player playing 30 blinds deep. He gets 3-bet to 19 by an in-position player. I'm going to go ahead and put in a cold 4-bet from the big blind here with aces. Going to be about 66 out there. Probably do this to stack off with jacks or better. And I'm going to do this with about a 50-50 ratio of value bets to bluffs. So I'm going to cold 4-bet about 6% there. He comes along for a call. We get an 8-5-4 two-tone board. I do not have the relevant spade in my hand with an ace for the backdoor flush draw. Going to go ahead and range bet him small. Lower left-hand table, I got called by a rec in the big blind, a 10-4 deuce two-tone board. I'm going to go ahead and range bet. I do have 2 overcards, backdoor straight draw. He comes along for a call. Turn is the deuce of spades. It's a flush closing card. I do not have the ace of spades in my hand. If so, I would probably check to trap. Without it, I think I need to keep betting. A half pot bet here would make it about 270 on the river with about 130 behind. I think that's probably the right sizing convention to use. Go about half pot here instead of about a half pot on the river. If he's got an overpair, especially with the spade, he's going to have a hard time getting away. If he has a hand like pocket 10s, pocket jacks, no spade, he might think it's time to lay down. And he quickly folds against my turn barrel, so I pick up the pot there. Lower right-hand table, blind on blind, I'll open ace-queen using a 45% range. Upper left-hand table, I'll open king-8 suited in the cutoff using a 28% range. Three-bet in position, a smidge over 3x. Recreational player in the small blind goes ahead and cold calls the 3-bet in case we didn't know he was a fish already. That goes ahead and gives us another clue. Gets the 3-bet in position, and then with another caller, just going to go ahead and fold a hand like king-8. Lower left-hand table, a player with only 20 blinds opens to 5 blinds on the cutoff. I'm in the small blind with pocket jacks. I'm just going to go ahead and raise this up. He's got, it's going to go ahead and put him all in, go just over a 4x raise there to put all 42 bucks in pre-flop. The big blind quickly folds. He calls off. He's got ace-3 offsuit. Happy with that result pre-flop, and my jacks hold up, so I take what was left of the recreational player's stack. Lower left-hand table, open the button with jack-7 suited using a 44% range. Big blind comes along, checks to me. I get a 6-5-3 monotone board, not the correct suit, though I do have a gut shot. I'll go ahead and range bet him small. Comes along for the call. Turn is an 8, putting a 4 flush up there. I don't have any relevant clubs in my hand. I do have an open ender now, but it really doesn't matter all that much with 4 of the same suit on the board and none of it in my hand. I'll go ahead and check back. River is a 4, giving me the straight there. He goes and he bets very small, about a third pot. I think I can actually just show this down here with the straight. He can have non-flush cards. He could be doing that. Oh, he had 7-8, so he was actually sort of blocking or leading with the straight as well. Hit an open ender on the flop, turned a pair on the turn on that 4 flush, and then river the actual straight. Lower right-hand table, open an ace-jack suited from the cutoff using a 28% range. Recreational player comes along in the small blind. I get a queen 8-5 two-tone board. I do have the nut flush draw on this one. He checks to me. I'll go ahead and range bet him small. Mostly barreling turns here. Interesting turn card, the king, offsuit king, which gives me a gut shot to Broadway to go with my nut flush draw. I think I want to be playing overbet or check here. Let me see here. I don't need to overbet quite as large as I normally do just because he's a bit shorter. Yeah, maybe we still do. Let's see. Yeah, we'll bet him about 26. Still go about 150% a pot. And then he folds out. So many good rivers for me there. Lower left-hand table, the player playing about 25 blinds deep, limps blind on blind. I check in with 7-3. He checks to me on the 6-5 deuce two-tone board. I do have a gut shot. Going to go ahead and stab for the minimum there against him. He check calls. Turn is the 3, putting a 4 straight out there. It gives me a pair. I've got a smidge of showdown value. You don't know that I really fold out 5s or 6s unless I really start piling on. Hard to pile on when he's short. I do beat the random overcards or flush draws that haven't paired right now. I'm going to check that one back and evaluate the river. Try to get this pot to showdown in a bit smaller size. And he blasts for a bit more than pot on the 4 straight. I'll go ahead and fold against that size up. Lower right hand or upper right hand table rather, get a 3x open from a kind of tight, passive, fishy player. I have queens. We don't know too much about his tendencies over the first couple of orbits. So I'm going to go ahead and 3-bet and just assume queens are good here at this point. Given that he's tighter, I probably won't 3-bet him quite as tight because he seems to be a bit on the tight side, but I'll still 3-bet him something like 10% here, including the pocket queens. Queens are getting 3-bet there for sure, no matter what. And he folds, so he obviously didn't have queens beat. Upper left-hand table, a rec limps the cutoff, folds to my big blind. I'll check in with 10-6 and check range on the king 8-7 rainbow flop. He goes ahead and blasts for pot. I do have a gut shot, but not even to the nuts. I think I can just go ahead and fold against that pot size bet. Smaller bet, I could talk myself into floating. Not even so much because I can feel my gut shot for a better price, but because I think he's going to check back the turn and fold to a river bet a bit more often when he bets a small size. Against that pot, that flop mashing the pot button, he's a little more likely to be strong, so I'm going to be a little more likely to get out of the way. Upper right-hand table, open an ace-10 from the cutoff using a 28% range. Lower left-hand table, it open ace-jack from middle position using a 21% range. Get raised from 5 to 10 by a very loose, passive recreational players. 31-2 through 42 hands. He's only raised pre-flop once, much less re-raised. The price is so damn good, I really have no choice but to call, but I'm going to be very, very cautious if I don't flop the world here. Check range on the king 4-4 two-tone flop. And given this guy's so passive, I'm just going to keep checking, and even though they have a gut shot on the turn there with that queen. And he goes ahead and blasts for pot. I am just folding. Yeah, and he ends up showing kings full. Lower left-hand table, going to open king 10 from under the gun using an 18% range. I'm sorry, king 10, ace king. Lower right-hand table, opening the button with king jack using a 44% range. Lower left-hand table, a player playing 50 blinds deep, suspected rec. He min-raises blind on blind. I'm going to defend pretty much everything. I'm only going to fold about 10% against that. Ace-jack, I'm just going to continue for a call. I don't see a reason to 3-bet, especially against a shorter stack. Do get a great flop for ace-jack, jack-7 deuce rainbow. He goes ahead and bets half pot. Continue range for a call. Turn is the 10, putting a backdoor flush draw out there. It is also a potential straight completing card against 8-9. He goes ahead and he bets 4 into 15. I think I can raise that particular size up. Just going to go ahead and repot him there with my top pair, top kicker. Upper left-hand table, open ace-queen from middle position using a 21% range. Got called by Rex and the button and the small blind, as well as a half-stack big blind player, another suspected Rex. Sandwiched between all these guys, I'm just going to go ahead and check range on that king-9 deuce two-tone board. I do have the ace of hearts for the backdoor flush draw in my hand, although I don't know it's going to be that relevant multi-way like this. Lower left-hand table, a rec limps the cutoff. I complete my small blind with jack 10. I check range after the big blind checks in on the king-queen 5 two-tone flop. No club in my hand for any kind of flush draw blockers or backdoors, but I do have an open-ended straight draw. Upper left-hand table, the in-position player bets 6 into 19. I'm just going to go ahead and fold against all those players with my ace-queen high. Lower left-hand table, the flop checks around. It's a 3 of spades on the turn, putting a second flush draw up there. I'm going to go ahead and lead the turn for the minimum with my open-ender, planning to follow through on the river in most cases here, whether I whiff or whether I hit. Big blind folds out, in-position player calls. River is the ace of spades, gives me the straight. However, a flush is possible. I'm going to be value betting this combo, but not over betting with the possible flush out there. I'll just go ahead and use a 70%-ish type size instead. He calls. My hand is good. He had ace-8 of clubs, so he had the club nut flush draw to the clubs that made top pair on the river. I think his call down is completely reasonable, even though he himself seems to be a recreational player. Doesn't mean everything they do is a mistake. That same recreational player limps the cutoff. I isolate from the button with something like my cutoff open range, about 28%, including ace-10. Rec in the small blind calls and checks to me on the queen-3 deuce two-tone board. I'll go ahead and range bet him small. Do have the ace of spades for the backdoor flush draw in my hand as well. Lower right-hand table, 3x open blind on blind. I will defend my big blind with ace-8. Get a 10-9-7 two-tone board. He checks to me. I've got an open ender on an overcard. I'm going to go ahead and stab for half pot. He comes along for the call. Turn is the 7. I've got good removal to the 7 that I block 8-7 and ace-7, so I block some of the most likely and reasonable 7x in his range. Let me see here. On this particular board, I can have sevens, quad sevens, but other than that, I really don't. I guess I can have jack-8, both suited or offsuit, but I really don't have the boats. I think I want to use a half pot size in here, as I just don't think I have that big of a nut advantage without having 10s or 9s in my range. So I'm gonna keep barreling, of course, with my open ender and my overcard. Upper left-hand table, min raise from a fish on the button. I'll defend my big blind with ace-3 suited, check range on the flop. Goes ahead and bets half pot on the 10-7-6 rainbow board. Board that coordinated, I think I can probably just fold, especially because we're not that deep behind him. He's only playing on a half stack, so I'll go ahead and fold my backdoor flush draw ace high. Probably pretty close, but I think fold is going to be slightly better, even if it might not be what a solver would do. We went heads up on the upper right-hand table, get a 2.5x open. I'm going to go ahead and 3-bet my big blind with jack-10 suited. Plan to just shuffle this table out and find some table playing 4 to 6-handed with at least a fish or two at it. Lower left-hand table, a rec limps the button. Looks like couple recs limp under the gun and then the button. I check my big blind with jack-4. The flop checks around, and the turn puts a backdoor flush draw out there. Flop was jack-4 rainbow. Turn is the 8. With my weak trips, I'm going to go ahead and lead for the minimum. Upper left-hand table, I'm opening the button with king-10 using the 44% range. Both players call me. River is a fairly innocuous offsuit 6. I guess 7-9 was already there for the straight, so that doesn't really change much of anything. I'm going to go ahead and lead out for value with my trips about 2/3 into 2 players, and they both quickly fold. Upper left-hand table, a rec calls the big blind. I get a jack-9-3 two-tone board. I'm going to go ahead and range bet small. I do have a gut shot and an overcard, but no flush draws, blockers, backdoors, anything like that. Upper left-hand table, going to open jacks from the cutoff using a 28% range. Upper right-hand table, brand new to it, but a half stack open limps the button. Pretty safe to say he's a recreational player. Will not be doing anything with my 7-3 in the small blind, but do have a good read on this 3-seed as being almost certainly a rec player playing 50 blinds deep and open limping the button. Lower right-hand table, get a 2.5x open from middle position. A weak player calls on the button, playing about 60 blinds deep. A fishy, loose, passive player. I'm going to go ahead and squeeze from my big blind with ace-king. Squeezing 7 to 8% in this particular spot. Fold out the opener. And the recreational player. Pick up the pot pre-flop. Lower right-hand table, a recreational player open limps the cutoff. I will complete my small blind with 9-7 suited. Big blind checks in. I'll check range on the queen 9-6 rainbow flop. Do have a backdoor flush draw as well to go with my second pair. I check. Big blind checks. Rec goes an overbet 770 into 570. I'll just go ahead and fold, especially with another player behind me and for that large sizing. It's a small sizing, you know, half potish, 2/3. I think I'd be coming along for a call. Pot size, or especially an overbet, I think I can just go ahead and fold there. Upper left-hand table looks like middle position and button both limp. I check in my big blind and check range on the king 10-5 two-tone board. I've got 10-9 offsuit, so I do have second pair. Lower right-hand table, open kings on the button using a 44% range. Upper left-hand table, the flop checks through. The turn is the queen of hearts, flush closing card. I'm going to go ahead and stab for the minimum with my pair of tens. Probably mostly checking the river unless I hit a card I'm really happy with. Probably the most likely to be the 10. River is an offsuit 3. I'm just going to check and try to show this down. Lower right-hand table, get 3-bet from the small blind. I'm going to go ahead and put in a 4-bet from the button with kings. Going to 4-bet kings, queens, aces, ace-king to get him in. Actually, even jacks, and then use a couple of offsuit aces like ace-jack, ace-10 as my pre-flop bluffs. Lousy flop for the kings, ace-ace deuce rainbow. I am going to go ahead and put in a range bet, as it does smack my range hard, even if the kings aren't the ideal hand to have on that board. Upper left-hand table, get a 2.5x open from the button. He's been a bit on the tight side. I'm going to go ahead and 3-bet him from the small blind with ace-jack suited anyway. You know, might be 3-betting a bit tighter, more like a 10-11% as opposed to about 15% there, just because he's been on the tight side. But ace-jack is suited, still going to be in the range. Lower right-hand table, my small range bet got called. Turn is a jack. I could now have jack's full or my ace-jack pre-flop bluff now pull the head of ace-king, ace-queen if he flatted them. So it's a decent card for some hands in my range, but not the kings. I can go ahead and check back everything on this. I can check back my aces, my jack's full, my ace-king. I can check back my pairs like kings and queens. Upper left-hand table, get an ace-deuce-deuce two-tone board. Going to go ahead and range bet him small. Now he moves me all in. I've got quad aces. I've got jacks full. I've got ace jack. I've got ace king. I've got ace 10. Kings and queens are my worst hands here, so I am just going to go ahead and fold them. Unfortunate setup, but what are you going to do? I'm going to continue trying to bluff here on the lower left-hand table. No good running into an ace, but not going to show down my weak pair. Upper left-hand table, my continuation bet got called. Turn is the 9 of diamonds, a flush closing card. I'm going to be checking a lot of hands on that particular card, including my ace-jack, no diamond. He goes ahead and checks back. Trying to decide if there's any merit in trying to get called by worse. I think I'm probably just better off checking here and see if I can show this shit down. Lower right-hand table, my middle position open got squeezed after a fishy player calls. I think I should just be folding that. Lower left-hand table, 2.5x open from middle position. I'm going to 3-bet my small blind with ace-queen. 3 betting about 8-9% there. Ace queen, ace king, pocket eights are better, suited broadways, a couple of wheel aces, a range like that seems like a pretty reasonable way to do it. He comes along for a call. We get a jack 8-7 two-tone board. I have all the jacks, I've got all the eights, I've got all the sevens. I don't have any jack 10 suited, but then again, he probably shouldn't really either. Well, I'm sorry, 10-9 suited. He probably could have some of that. I guess I don't really have a nut advantage here because I think he actually is going to have a decent bit of the straight, whereas I don't have any of that, and he should really have all the other sets just like I do. So it's going to be a range check for me. Upper left-hand table, going to open King-Jack from the cutoff using a 28% range. He goes ahead and he stabs small. He stabs a third pot. I don't really know what. I guess I can be folding hands like ace-5, ace-4, no backdoor flush draw. The ace-high overcards I think I want to come along with at least once. Interesting card for me, gives me a gut shot there on that king of hearts, puts a backdoor flush draw up. I don't have any heart blockers, but I do have good removal to the king. I could conceivably have check called ace-king. He goes ahead and checks back. River is the best card for me, gives me the nut straight on that offsuit 10. I think I probably just have to go ahead. Let's see here. I think I'm just going to go ahead and move him all in hopes that he's got either some kind of two-pair set or a 9x type hand that he can't fold. Quickly folds. Lower right-hand table, going to go ahead and range bet against the big blind on the queen 5-3 two-tone board. I've got ace-4 of hearts for the flush draw and the gut shot. Lower left-hand table, open in 7-5 suited in the button using a 44% range. Lower right-hand table, get a 2.5x open under the gun. I'm going to 3-bet from middle position with king-queen suited. 3-betting about 8-9% in this particular spot. 9s plus, ace-queen, ace-king, king-queen. Most of my suited broadways and a couple of wheel aces. Upper left-hand table, I'll open 5s under the gun using an 18% range. On the upper left-hand table, the recreational player calls out of his small blind. Get an ace-jack-3 two-tone flop. Assuming he checks to me, I'll go ahead and range bet him. He does, so I'll go ahead and put in my small range bet. Upper right-hand table, what's effectively middle position, opens for 3x. I'm going to go ahead and 3-bet from the cutoff with ace-king suited. 3-betting about 9% in that spot. 9s plus, ace-jack plus, king-queen, most suited broadways, and a couple of suited wheel aces. We get cold called by players in both the small blind and the big blind, both almost certainly fishy type players for doing so. And then I get 4-bet by the under the gun player. With all that dead money out there, he could be 4-betting a bit wider or a bit looser, both to call off or as a bluff. And I've got ace-king suited, so I really got no choice but just go ahead and ship this all in. Lower left-hand table, I open blind on blind with ace-queen suited using the 45% range. Fold out the first bit of dead money. The player's sitting on $57, calls all in. The undergun player's got ace-king, so him and I are racing against ace-3 there, who actually bangs off the wheel. Hilarious. Lower left-hand table, the big blind calls. I'm going to check range to the big blind on Jack 9-5 rainbow. I got 2 overcards and a backdoor flush draw. Lower left-hand table, get a Limper from the cutoff. Small blind pops him up to 10. I'm in the big blind with pocket queens. Going to go ahead and pop this up to about 34. Lower left-hand table, Turner's the 10 of diamonds, give me an open ender and the nut flush draw. Going to go ahead and jab at that small and plan to follow through on the river. River is a 10, just going to go ahead and bluff for a more standard 2/3 type size. Might have overbet had I hit a gin card. Lower left-hand table, get a 2.5x open from the cutoff, or middle position. A recreational player calls in the cutoff, a reg calls on the button. I'm going to squeeze from the small blind with my ace-king. Going to stack off with queens plus ace-king here if he jams back at me. And I've got about a 60-40 ratio of bluffs to value bets, squeezing about 6.5% there. Get 4-bet by the original raiser. Go ahead and put a play on this guy on the lower left-hand table here. Can fold if he jams. Been stacking off with jacks plus ace-king. Got a few suited broadways in my range there. Upper left-hand table, the original pre-flop raiser 4-bets me. I'm going to ship my ace-king in. The other players are out of there. I get cold 4-bet by the big blind, so my ace-10 suited's going straight to the muck. I'm up against ace-king again here. Lower right-hand table, a rec limps blind on blind. I'm going to pop him up from the big blind with ace-5, raising something like my button open range, about 44%. Lower left-hand table, opening queen-10 from the cutoff, using the 28% range. Lower right-hand table, he goes ahead and limp calls. I'm going to range bet him small on that queen-8-10 rainbow board. Lower left-hand table, I get led into for the minimum 2 into about 10 on Jack 10-5. I've got second pair. I'm going to go ahead and just float for a call there. I'm also going to shut the session down here as it's about that time for me. He continues min betting. I'll continue calling. That's a 7 of hearts. That's a flush closing card on the turn, but his bet size doesn't really scare me any. River, he checks. I wonder if there's any merit in trying to get some finish type value here. He could maybe even call me with the 5. Ace is a little on the thin side, but he seems fishy, so I'm going to try it. Bet about 2/3. He calls, and he's got ace-jack. Maybe it was a little too greedy, but I like trying to get greedy with my river value bets. Lower left-hand table, opening king-jack from middle position, using a 21% range. Lower right-hand table, opening queen-6 suited from the button, using a 44% range. Upper left-hand table, opening king-queen from middle position, using a 21% range. Lower right-hand table, my button open got 3-bet by the small blind, and I'll fold my queen-6 suited. Lower left-hand table, my king-jack got 3-bet in position. I'll just go ahead and fold. Upper left-hand table, get a jack-6 deuce monotone board. Big blind recreational player called pre-flop, checks the flop. I will range bet him small. I do have the queen of spades here. Let's go with a couple of overcards. He check calls. Turn is the ace. I now have a gut shot to go with my flush draw or flush blocker. That queen of spades. I'll probably keep barreling this. He leads into me, 8 into 16. I think I can float that here, that small size. I'm not that worried about my spade not being good. River is the 5 of spades, 4 flush out there, and I've got the third nut flush. Loose to the ace, loose to the king. Beat everything else. He goes and bets 10 into 30. I don't think there's too much reason in raising that, but I'm sure not folding. I'll just go ahead and call that down. He flopped a 9 high flush with 9-4 of spades, but I outran him with the river card. I'll take it. Upper right-hand table, opening ace-10 from the cutoff using the 28% range. If 3-bet by the small blind, just go ahead and fold my ace-10. Suspected fish goes ahead and cold calls the 3-bet. I'm still folding my ace-10. And he had 8-7 offsuit, so yeah, he is most certainly a recreational player, just clicking some buttons. Last hand, going to fold Jack-Deuce under the gun. That's going to conclude the video. Hope you enjoyed watching it, as I sure enjoyed making it. Until next time, this is Charlie Murphy signing off.